All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Adams Brothers podcast. Happy Monday to each and every last one of you out there in Facebook land and YouTube land that's out there watching right now. We are joined here this evening with Miss Latoya Clarke, and she is going to be running for City Commissioner with the beautiful city of Sunrise, Florida, Seat A. And Miss Clarke is joining us here this evening to let all of our viewers out there in Facebook land and across Broward County know why she should be the next commissioner, Seat A, with the city of Sunrise. So, good evening, Miss Clarke, and welcome to the Adams Brothers podcast.
Good evening, Adams Brothers. Thank you so much for having me on today for this interview. It's such a pleasure to be here with you guys.
Well,
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. So, Miss Clarke, go ahead and tell us a little bit about you. Tell us, about your education, where you went to school, and just all of the good things that you'd like the voters of Sunrise to know about you.
Well, I grew up in St. Catherine, Jamaica. I was born in Jamaica. I moved to the United States when I was around 14 years old, and I completed my education at Piper High School, which is in the city of Sunrise. So I grew up in the city of Sunrise. In 2009, I purchased a home in the city of Sunrise as well. So that's about 15 years ago. I attended Florida Atlantic University, where I obtained a Bachelor's of Arts degree in political science. And then I went on to Nova University, where I have a master's in healthcare law. And I then went on to work in the healthcare industry for the last 22 years, reaching all the way up to director of patient access, which is a revenue cycle department. And I have been serving in the city of Sunrise for about 15 years. Ever since I got there, I was really energized about serving the community. I joined the East Sunrise Residents Association. I started on their board in 2012. 2012. I started on their board, and then I became the president of the board in 2004. So I've been also just been working with the community, just being able to serve them, doing all the things that is, a civic activist should do, right? Then I moved on from that to even started a business community as well. I'm the president for that association as well, which also is in the city of Sunrise. I
Okay.
serve on several other boards in the city of Sunrise as well. Just to be active in the community and see them flourish is one of my ultimate goals.
Well, you certainly have an impressive resume, and we certainly would like to see you uh, get elected there in Sunrise.
Yes.
You have that energy and that little spark about you. I had a chance to meet you in person, and just what you see on camera right now. She's that same person, maybe even a little bit more peppier in person. So you definitely have all that it takes to education wise and to be the next city commissioner, Seat A in city of Sunrise. So Miss Clarke, you live in Sunrise, and if you're elected to be the commissioner, the next commissioner in Sunrise, what are some of the things that you'd like to see change or upgraded in your district in the Seat A district?
So in Sunrise, we really don't have a district that is designated. Everybody kind of sort of just works throughout the system in Sunrise to actually accomplish a goal. One of the things I would like to see happen is that each commissioner should have some sort of platform where their emphasis and focus on, so that we can have more access to the commissioners, one, and be able to have individuals who are held accountable for things that they're supposed to be doing in our city. So that is one of the things that I would like to see happen. I would also like to see, even as I am on this trail, I've noticed that there is a big gap within the city. From east and west, there are areas that are lacking information. And it's very surprising to me that individuals don't know what's really happening in our city, and they don't know what programs are available for them. And so one of the biggest things is communication. I'm very big on communicating, sometimes a little bit over communicating, because I think that that's the only way we can get empowered into knowledge is if we know something, right? And so there is a big gap within the community about access to information. And I think that is something that really needs to be changed.
Right. And one of the good ways is, to get information out to your constituents would be to have meetings in your area, and for the people who vote for you. And social media is also a good way. Do you plan on utilizing social media to get the word out, or on the city website, or will you just you just hands on? You want to just have a meeting and set a date and just invite the your constituents out to inform them.
So twofolds, right? So as you are aware, you're in Sunrise, so our city website is a bit, it needs rework. It needs to be revamped drastically, right? And being that I have worked in other cities and I've seen some of the activities that they have done, there are areas where they have an app where you can look up and see different activities that are happening in the city and different information. I think we need to really have a focus group that comes together, which is based on young adults and older individuals, so that we can have a forum to see what is the best form of communication and how can we get communication information out to majority of the individuals in our community. I think it's not a one fit answer. I think it really needs a collaborative force from the older and the younger to see what best works for them, because not everyone gets information in the same platform. So that's one of the things that I think is important to happen. Also, in addition to that, I do believe in having meetings where we can actually have open forums and talk to the constituency. That's one of the things I think is important. I don't think we should just have it randomly. I do think it's supposed to be something that is scheduled and is set, so individuals can make a point of duty to come on. They can actually call in, or they can have questions already being asked. And that should be something that is then the answer should be available to the public so that they can see it, because not everything is going to be able to be answered in a live setting, right? Some of the things are going to require some research. But I do think that it's important that we do have an open dialogue with the community, and it shouldn't just be a commissioner meeting, because those meetings are structured with agenda items, and it typically runs extremely long, and it doesn't really answer the minute questions that individuals might have.
Right. And I just found out that the city of Sunrise, they don't have term limits there. So if you continue to get elected, you can be in there forever if the people of Sunrise want you there. Mm-hmm. And a lot of cities, and your city in particular, they hold their elections right along with the general election, which is going to be on November the 5th. And you all will be having your election there in Sunrise as well, which that saves the taxpayers money, because I know a lot of cities like where we live in Deerfield, they don't hold their municipal elections during the general election. They have it in March. So about how much, my question, that will lead me to my question. Now, how much does it cost to hold a municipal election there in the city of Sunrise? You don't have to be right on the money, but just ballpark.
Ballpark, I don't know the ballpark answer to that question. It all depends on when we're having, but bear in mind, we do have elections every 2 years. So in the next 2 years, we're going to have another election for seat C and D. So we do have them off season as well. They're not always with the general election. It's right. Every 2 years.
Staggered. Okay. All right. Wayne?
Yes. You ever had any experience doing like budgets? You ever had any budgetary experience?
Yes. So part of the revenue cycle is being responsible for a budget, maintaining it, creating it, and making sure that you are following what needs to happen. So yes, I do have experience with that.
Okay. And any other organizations prior to running the office, like was you ever involved in anything like a lot of organizations within your city in Sunrise?
So I've been involved with many organizations. So I'm part of the
Mhm.
Chambers of Commerce. I'm part of the Ezra Group. I'm part of some business organization as well. But when it comes on to anything that requires elections of this public nature, none.
Mhm. Okay. And what endorsements have you had any notable people endorse you?
Um, I have not really gone out to seek endorsements. I really wanted to really run this race based on the fact that it's important for me to hold it close to me because I don't really want it to be entitled or in beholden to any particular group. So I kind of stayed away from endorsements
Mhm.
for that particular nature because this one is the first time I'm actually running. And so I really wanted to have myself open enough where I can still maintain the the reasons why I'm running and keep that as close to home as possible.
Yes. And what are some of the biggest needs of, I know you say you all don't have districts, but what are some of the biggest needs of seat A, if I'm correct?
Yeah.
Seat A?
Seat A. Yeah.
Yeah.
So seat A, like I said, we really don't have any portfolio for seat A, which is one of the things I would love to create is a portfolio as to what are you supposed to be doing in seat A so that when individuals are running, they really do have to meet that standards and that qualification for a seat A. We currently do not have that at this current moment. But what are some of the things that are important that I have realized that we need in the city is that we have a increased amount of traffic in our city, and that is a big concern for everyone. However, the way how it's being addressed in our city is lacking the resources. We really need more patrol officers on our streets.
Mhm.
There have been discussions about having street bumps, speed bumps to actually alleviate some of this traffic. There's also cameras discussion to talk about that as well. But we really do need to take advanced step in how we're going to approach the traffic in our city, especially considering that the city is in talks of having all these additional apartments that are coming into our city. It's something that we really need to really have a design for and a plan in place when this happens, how we're going to address it and how we're going to really make these communities as safe as possible and prevent any accident from happening.
What about drainage? If you live anywhere near the Sunset Strip, you've ever driven down the Sunset Strip, you know that when it rains, that street is horrible. So, would you like to see some improved drainage down the Sunset Strip?
I do believe that there's planning works for some improved drainage in Sunset Strip. I do believe that is already in works to happen. When it actually is happening, I don't have a specific date, which is one of the reasons why communication is important in the city. But I do know that there is a plan in place for that, but there has been no timeline for it.
And when we talked to Mr. Douglas last week, he talked about the lack of Black people, minorities uh, in Sunrise. If elected, what would you do to address some of the, I know you probably didn't listen, but what would you do to address the lack of minorities in Sunrise, in city positions, and just just a lot?
So
How would you
there's
address
a lot of minorities that live in the city of Sunrise, a lot.
that?
And the unfortunate thing about it is that it's not represented in our representation on our commission board. And that is a problem. But it's also not represented in the different municipalities that are there in the cities as well, right?
Right.
So our police department doesn't necessarily reflect the entire city, or fire department doesn't necessarily reflect the entire city. The city staff itself does not necessarily represent what our city looks like. And that is something that we really need to have a plan in place because, something that I find to be a little bit disturbing to me is the fact that communication is only in English, but yet there's a lot of Spanish individuals. There's a lot of Creole speaking individuals. And we really need to create avenues where those individuals can be communicated in their native language. And unfortunately, I don't see a plan in place for that, but I do know that it's something that is important, because if you're going to represent a city, we need to be able to have the totality of the city be represented at all times. And so one of the things that I would be working with is to try to make sure that our city looks like the people that are in the city.
Yeah. And if elected, how would you describe your management style?
Mhm. So I'm a very hands-on leader. I have led a group of team up to 200 and different leadership models, being that I have directors, supervisors, managers that all reported up to me. So I have managed different levels throughout industries throughout my lifetime. And so for me, I think I'm a very hands-on, meaning that I would probably most likely be going to most of the departments, figuring out who the leaders are, speaking to the individuals one-on-one, getting a feedback or a feel as to what they would like to see, how are they feeling in the city, and then I can move on from that. But since I've been going around to the different communities, I've gotten a lot of feedback from the individuals as to what they would like to see. How do they feel in the city? And that is something that I'm taking very serious, even as I'm running right now, just to make sure that I have that representation of the individuals that I have come across in the community, and try to make sure that that voice is being heard right now. Even if I'm not elected, that is something I still plan on doing, because I
Mhm.
feel as if that individuals need to feel as if that they're a part of the community that they live in. They spend, they may work 8 hours or 12 hours somewhere else, but when they come home at night, this is where they belong. And so they need to have that belong feeling.
Yeah. And how would you describe the relationship with the police department and the minority community, Black community, minority community? How would you describe the
So,
relationship of you being a resident there? And
so for
why I say that before you answer is I remember just maybe 2 years ago, I remember seeing a Channel 7 news incident where they had arrested this Black guy. He was in the back, and this no longer officer came in and told him he'll whatever choke the life out of him, and it was one of the female officers trying to restrain him or pull him back, and he swung her aside, and it was a big news article on that. So that's why I asked that. How would you describe the relationship between the police and the minorities, the Black community there?
So while on the board of Ezra, we have seen two police chiefs. And one of the things that we have always asked the police chiefs is to make sure that when they're making their hiring decisions, that they are hiring based on what the community needs. And so we ask them to make sure that they're increasing the minority group within their police department, because that was a big issue throughout the tenure of me working with Ezra. And so that is something that we have currently asked of this police chief as well, to ensure that he is ensuring that is still a follow through. That being said, the relationship, it can be improved. And one of the things that I think can be improved is the relationship, when they're not needed relationship.
Mhm.
Police need to be accessible enough to individuals where they feel safe talking to them, right? That one of the things that I've talked to our police chief about is, we let us go to different communities that we have seen, where there is a especially need, where there is like apartment buildings in certain parts of the community, and let's just knock on some doors, have a barbecue outside or something, so that whenever a young person or older person gets in contact with the police, the first instinct is not something negative, right? Sometimes you need to be able to have that personable reaction, because why you're not getting any information, he's like, I don't understand why we're not getting information from these individuals, because the first interaction with you is that things are going bad, right? We need to be able to make a mark where it's not always bad. Sometimes the police officers can be there for a good reason. And we have to have that type of communication back and forth, especially when you're younger, so that you can grow into a person where you won't be afraid of every last interaction. And sometimes we get into more trouble just because we're so afraid of the police officers that we start doing things that really doesn't even need to be done when we could have just done the right thing the first time. But we
Yeah,
are always intimidated. And so I think we need to have communication back and forth that is organic enough where it does not require any kind of negativity towards it.
yeah, because that was, I know that Channel 7 news was story was very, put a very negative light, you know, on the guy. And I mean, the officer had been there a long time, but he, you know, he lost his cool and he pushed the officer, and you know,
Yeah,
it was just wild to see that. But
And that's why community policing is very, very important
very
and
important.
imperative. You got to have community policing, and you have the police. They have to have a rapport with the communities that they serve, and if they don't have that rapport with the community, when there's a murder, God forbid there's a murder or something like that, people aren't going to want to come and speak up, you know. But if
Mhm.
they have a relationship with the police officers that patrol their area and their city, that they will be more inclined to come forward with the information rather than just not talking, you know. So I think community policing is very, very important.
It is. And, granted, I'm not saying our police department is perfect, but I did go through their police patrol group that they have, and that's a very good program. And, to the point where I think that needs to be expanded a little bit. And maybe that could be the form where it expands into community where individuals can get that opportunity outside of coming to a police department to actually get that training, that they'll get that in their community as well. And that will then translate into having more options when you go to select police officers from within the community, because oftentimes the police that we're hiring are not necessarily in our city, right? And so we need to be able to get applicants that are from our city as well, so that we can be more community involved when we're selecting these applicants. And so we'll have a community police that lives in our community.
There you
yeah.
go.
And if elected, what would you like to have accomplished? I would say in the first year and a half of being in office, what would your vision be as? And I know you
So
can't say the whole thing, but you know, just,
well, one of the things that I would love to be accomplished, and I think, change comes very slowly and not necessarily as fast as one would think. But one of the
mhm.
first things that I think is important, and to make it realistic as possible, is that I would like to see an oversight advisory board created. And what that board would be is to review the existing programs that we have within the city and see whether or not they're effective and whether or not we need to enhance them or get rid of them, because there is a lot of programs and grants and ordinances and programs that the city does that
Mhm.
sometimes it's really not best serving the community, or the community doesn't even know it exists, right? And so I would love to have a group that is created by youth and seniors and other individuals that live within the community, and we'll go through these step by step and we'll review them and see the effectiveness of them, because everything that we do in our city is costing money, right? And it's taxpayers money. So I want to make sure that we are really spending the time to examining these programs and see whether or not they still make sense, and if we need to keep them, and if we need to keep them, then how can we revitalize them so that they're more accessible to everyone.
Yes, and my final question to you is do y'all have a charter review committee there in your city? And how often do they look at the uh charter for review in your city?
So there is a charter. The review just happened, I believe, a couple months ago. Um, but I don't think it was reviewed to the extent, because there was something that I saw that I would like to change. But
Mhm.
if elected, we will definitely review, table back to that.
That's why I asked you that, because a lot of cities have old and antiquated things on the books that need to
Mhm.
be taken a look at. And a lot of times, most of the people taking a look at it does not look like me and you and Daryl. So,
Exactly. And that's
yeah,
why we really need to have a review board that really represents the entire city. It needs to have individuals that are represented. Oftentimes, we are not represented in places that we should, right? But in order to make these things happen, we need individuals who are like-minded to be sitting on the commission board, right?
That's
Because
true.
if I say we need to review it and the other four just say no, then we're not going to review it, right?
right.
So we
That's how it
need
works.
alignment with individuals who look like you and I, so that, or not even just me and you, but also, the other groups, the other minority groups that are out there. We need
Hmm.
those alignments to come together so that we can be well represented in our city, and that we'll be able to have the things that we feel needs to be changed, really take a look at. But it's all based on whether or not we have enough votes to make any change happen. And so it's important that when we're selecting individuals, we select individuals based on the fact that they will have alignment based on their policies that they think are important.
Okay. Anything else?
That'll be all for me. You answered
Okay.
everything.
So, Miss Clark, if you're elected, well, let me back up just a little bit. Mr. Douglas was on here. Mark Douglas was on here last week, and he brought it to our attention that he was the first black elected official in the city of Sunrise. He was the first commissioner, and he's now running for mayor. And if he's elected mayor, he'll be the first black mayor of the city of Sunrise. And if you are elected to seat A with the city of Sunrise as the next commissioner, you'll be the first black female that will ever hold that seat. So
And we will
one,
be the biggest minority group in the city
Yes,
too, because we
yes,
also have another minority that is sitting on the commission board right now. So we
yes,
would
yes,
be the
indeed.
minority vote.
Oh yeah,
all right.
definitely.
Okay, so look into that camera and tell the people of Sunrise why they should elect you as the next commissioner in seat A.
So I would love to earn your vote. And the reason why I would love to earn your vote is because I have been working in the city for a very long time. I've sat on several boards. I have been well experienced with making sure that we are physically responsible. I have made changes on the east side of Sunrise, and I would love to be able to do that for the entire city of Sunrise. Given the opportunity, I am sure you will not regret it, because I will hold myself accountable by ensuring that we have open forums for discussion and review on a concurrent basis, in which that we'll be able to express ourselves, which is something that we currently do not have in our city right now.
All right, well said.
Thank you.
And if you're just
Good
joining us,
luck.
we have been talking to Miss Latoya Clarke. She is running for city commissioner and with the city of Sunrise, seat A. Good luck to you, ma'am. And
Thank
Yes,
the
you.
indeed.
election is held on
Early voting is now.
November the 5th. Early
November
voting
is
is
now.
now. And are you on social media? If you are, blast out, give a shout out to your social media handles.
So I am on Instagram at electlatoyaclarke.com. I'm also on Facebook at Latoya for Commissioner. I am on website at latoyaclarksunrise.com as well.
All right.
Okay. And if elected, come back on here. We would
Want to see you
definitely
back
like
on
to
here. Don't be
talk to you
shy.
again, because everyone
I,
got
I will
elected. Always
definitely
come
not
back and
be
talk with us.
shy.
Yes,
I
yes.
will definitely not be shy, because, like I said, communication is a big thing for me. And so, in one of the things is to make sure that we get communication out, right? And so being able to be on this podcast, being able to be on social media, be able to send out email, texts, various ways of communication to get that
Mhm.
information out to the listeners, to the residents, to make sure that they know what's being going on in our city, and keeping them informed and engaged is going to be something that I am promising to do as well.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Well said, Latoya Clarke. Good
Ms.
luck
Clarke,
to you.
good luck.
In your quest to be the
Thank
next
you.
city commissioner with the city of Sunrise. Good luck to you, and we'll be waiting to see the results on November the 5th.
I think you're gonna win.
Thank you. Nabil Soccer Club, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. all the way up until Sunday, and we'll be back at the various locations in the city of Sunrise for general election. So please come out early voting. It's 30 minutes or less and you're good to go. So please come out and visit, and also ask for me because I'll be at the soccer club.
There you go. There you go.
Thank you.
Latoya Clarke, thank you so much. We know you got to get back on that campaign trail out there. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us. Good luck to you and have a good rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Stay with us. We will be doing a pop-up podcast and talk about anything.
We'll be right back. Stay with us.